Hi, everyone. Okay, I can see this. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's really nice to be here. Huge thanks to Domagoy and the rest of the team for the invite. It's been really an interesting project. Um, it's always tricky when you are the speaker to the last speaker before lunch, right? Because you have people looking at you and you're trying to figure out, like, are they paying attention, or there is some Jedi mind trick trying to get you off stage? Um, since the food is since they say the food is great, so let's breeze through it. A bit of introduction. My name is Kene. I'm a product designer, community organizer, and I typically end my intros with human. Primarily because I want to, what's it called? Remind myself that the people the end users of the product are human beings. I haven't started designing for robots yet, but also to serve as a reminder to the rest of the audience that that end goal should be like front and center. And my journey essentially started like a long time ago. First, I started off as a developer and then did a lot of freelance. Eventually joined this company, Co-Creation Hub, which typically when I introduced them in the past, I would say is one of the largest hubs incubator hubs in Africa. But when I got off the plane on Wednesday, right in Zagreb, I got email notifications that they just acquired the other tech company, the other tech hub in Kenya. So it is the largest tech hub in Africa. I guess I should update that. But primarily my role there was to help them build out the internal design team as a design as a service within the org, but also for servicing small businesses, big businesses, and other kinds of startups that they support. Just over 2 years ago, I moved and joined Booking.com. If for some reason you don't know Booking.com, it is the largest travel website with a mission to try to make it easier for everyone to experience the world. When you think about travel, it's not essentially just booking a hotel. How do you get from the airport to your hotel? We're trying to solve that kind of problem. What do you do when you come to a place like Labin, for example, if you're visiting for the first time? We do have like some really good colleagues. I work with over 17K people who are quite interesting. And my journey started, like the inspiration or the motive behind the talk started when I joined. Started after a reflection from the first time I joined, as soon as I joined Booking.com. So if we go back to the definition of a team, it is simply a group of people that are working towards a common objective, right? So typically in Booking.com, and I would imagine in most companies, soon as you join as a newbie, you get put in an onboarding process, right? Which lasts a couple of months. And this time, I was put in a team that was tasked to solve a particular business need. So as a designer, we went through the whole process, where you validate the hypothesis, when you run the user test, design interactive prototypes, and do the developer handoff. And that all went smoothly. But it was also, at the point the project was ending, or at that time in the project, I needed to go on vacation, right? So I took some time off from work, and then 3 weeks later, when I showed up, there's been some changes. Now, some designers in the room are going to be familiar with this. Show of hands, how many designers in the room? Show of hands? Okay, quite a lot. So you're familiar with the concept where you have some kind of handoff to whether the developer or the implementation team, and then when you see the final product, there is a bit of delta. There is some difference, right? And then that difference kept running in my head. I was trying to figure out what went wrong. Of course, I did have conversations with the product manager at the time to try to understand the logic or the reasoning behind some of the cuts. And he did explain there were time constraints, but there are some tiny product-based decisions that I figured that that those decisions happened because they didn't have like the actual full context of why I had approached the project in that way. So essentially, I had focused on processes more than actually translating the impact or the reasoning behind the processes to the user, to the rest of the team. The product did shape. We did get to validate the assumptions that we had, and features got implemented in the main product. But it kept me thinking. Fortunately for me, I got a chance to join another team, the current team I'm with for the last 1.5 years ish. And then because I had gone through that process where I felt like I had failed in translating the design of the product, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what went wrong and what I needed to do to make it different. And then, of course, as a designer, you go with the how might we. Essentially, what I identified in the process was, the stakeholders. And this time wasn't the users. Typically, when we think stakeholders within the context of human-centered design, it is usually the end user. But in business, your stakeholders are not just the end users, but it's also your colleagues. It's the person in accounting. They all have a stake in the product. Essentially, if we agree that we're all working towards the same North Star, then it makes sense that they are all stakeholders, or they are all considered stakeholders, and then the question would then be, how do we include them in the process? So going back to the concept of team, within the context of my own team, we do have a product manager. Of course, the job titles do change across organizations, but the messaging is still about the same. So we do have a product manager, a front-end, back-end, or full-stack developer, depending on what it is. There is a copywriter who writes what people actually read and see on the product. There is an analyst who tries to make sense of the data. But there is a common functionality within every team, or there is a common characteristic in every team across any kind of company, across any kind of industry, and it is that the team shares a common goal or a set of common goals. They have the same North Star. Everybody within the team is ideally working towards the same thing, right? But it also means that the team is made up of more than one person, and each person within that team has different diverse roles. So as I thought about this, I figured what was the best way for me to internalize the different roles that the team plays and the interactions within the team. And so I decided to use the football analogy, right? So I'm almost 100% sure that everybody knows these guys, right? Okay, good. So the way I had imagined it, especially renaming the different roles for this talk, I'll probably have Mario as a designer. I'll probably have, what's his name, Luka Modric as the TL, the team lead, but it's also maybe a back-end developer. I will also have Dejan Lovren as a product marketing manager. Who knows? He could do that. But essentially, my goal with this illustration is just to highlight the different roles within the team. And if I'm also sticking to my football analogy, the way I would think about my defense would be to be put together with the people that are the team leads, the product owners, the product marketing managers, and analysts. Basically, every team within a company or every team within an organization is working towards the goals of the team, right? But however, there are always elements outside the team that are going to try to influence influence the outcomes in that team. It can take the form of, we need to prioritize this particular feature. Can you just stop this and let's do this quickly? It can also take the form of, do you have time to, or can we add, instead of doing these 3 things, can we do 5 things instead? 5 things looks cooler. The people in the defense, I consider them like the guardians of our peace. They are the people who make sure that the team maintains focus and the team works judiciously towards the goals that has been set. In the midfield, I'll consider these like the unsung heroes. They are, I mean, the way I've imagined it, you probably have a back-end developer, you have a full-stack developer, depending on the team or depending on the job title. You also have product marketing managers. You have people who do testing or the testing of the actual products. You have someone like a site reliability engineer or someone that does DevOps. Essentially, these set of people have various skills that the end user will probably never know about. The end user is never going to wake up one day and think, why is it fast? Like, it's never going to be something that the end user is going to consider. But they do a lot of heavy lifting. They do a lot of work to make sure that the actual product or the end product is successful. Of course, it's very easy to guess who then who then plays the attack. And in my analogy, I would stick to having a designer, a copywriter, and of course, you can have a full-stack developer. The reason I've named them in the attack for this analogy is because I believe they are just at the front of the experience that the user is going to experience, that the user is going to get. So regardless of the product, regardless of the service, the person or the group of people that presents, what's it called, the front line, the first point of interaction with the product or with the service, I would categorize them in the attack. But we can all agree here, I would assume that you all follow the last World Cup, right? But we can all agree that the job of the defense doesn't just lie with the defenders. It lies with the whole team, right? The job of moving the ball around from one point to the other, it's not the job of the midfielders, even though they are expected to create the most chances. But it also lies with the whole team. That is the same way I have imagined it within the context of product development. In as much as my job title says UX designer, the job of designing the products isn't just mine. It isn't restricted to anybody who has a UX design or a product design or anything design job title. It simply isn't. So, going back to this question, how is it that it's possible to then get stakeholders to participate in the process? And I will try to propose 3 different things. The first one I would try to do is encourage you to embrace different perspectives. The way an account manager is going to talk about a product is going to be different from the way the back-end developer is going to talk about a product. I would encourage you as a designer to step outside the bubble of talking or having product conversations with other designers, but actually to extend that with other disciplines across different verticals. Most of my knowledge about the business within partnerships at Booking.com, which is the side of the business that I'm in, comes from my engagement with the product marketing managers and the account managers. Because the account managers in this case have more direct access to all the frustrations of a partner, a product marketing manager has more understanding of what the market needs and how the market has been changing, as opposed to me that spends most of my days getting excited that Figma added a new icon. What having those conversations also does is allow you hear and understand how they speak, allow you understand the lingo. What are the lingos that they use? It's also going to help you in the future to then translate most of the things that you're trying to do to other people. The other thing I would encourage you to do is pay more attention to the why as opposed to the how. It's good for me to come and say, so I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to do a prototype in InVision, right? Prototype in InVision, it's English. Prototype, yes, they can get it. InVision is a tool, I know it. But why? Why is that necessary, right? If we spend a lot of time having conversations around the why, I believe that it is going to reduce a lot of friction that goes on, whether in handoffs, but also to create a shared understanding across the team as to the impact of the different processes that we're going to take to actually get the job done. The last bit is to actively seek feedback. Now, this bit is something that is critical to Booking.com and how we work. If you walk into a Booking.com office, if you walk into a Booking.com office that has a product team, you're going to see large printouts of what the team is working on across the halls. Like, you can literally find it anywhere, not just within the team's corner, but anywhere in the office where they can find space. And similar to that, you're going to find Post-it notes and pens around it. Essentially, if you're walking the halls of Booking.com and see a product and have a question about why they're implementing the feature that way, take a sticky note, write a question, put it on it, or write directly on the paper. By showing our work early, even though we don't have answers, even though we're not sure that this is what we're going to do, it invites conversations. And those conversations are important. Those conversations are critical in even us as designers understanding the role that the products that we're designing is going to play, but also trying to have a better understanding of how the pixels that we're moving is going to transform the business and move the business forward. So I encourage you to do like a lot of open yourself up to feedback and conversations. Similar to this, if you think about it, our design tools are also evolving. It's evolving in ways that invites conversations. The biggest excitement that Figma got when they launched was that more than one person could work on a design at the same time. Nobody had done it at the time that they launched. And right now, they are on pace to become one of the most popular design tools out there. InVision did about the same thing. It's all about collaboration, which is when they built out the InVision prototyping tool, and they've also been doing well. So in terms of metrics or in terms of numbers, the different companies that have tried to prioritize design tools that are just available for collaboration are also being embraced by the market. So what does that say? Even Adobe didn't want to get left out with the fun, so they decided to do the XD. I believe that if we do go through this process, we are going to be able to create a win-win situation. Win-win because our users are going to get products that have gone through a lot of iterations or a lot of feedback process. And also the business is going to be way more better for it. It's going to be way more better off because the needs or the concerns of the other parts of the business have also been included in the decision-making process for the product. So it does take a village. It is an African saying that it takes a village to raise a child. It's a very popular African saying, and it comes across while trying to research for this talk. I was trying to find out the origins and got confused because everywhere I looked, every country on the continent had different versions of it. In my language, I am Igbo, I'm from Nigeria. It would be said like Ofonye Anaghị Azụ Nwa. What that literally translates to is it takes more than one person to raise a child. If I left my house and I screwed up anywhere that I went to, my mother trusts that whichever adult is in the room is going to whoop my ass. She trusts it, right? And it's a collective and it's also a collective responsibility of the community that it's not just the responsibility of the parent. We're not going to make notes and give you retrospectives at the end of the month to say you screwed up, right? It is conversations that happen when it's on. You'll be surprised, you screw up and nobody shouts and you'll be surprised. And then you get home and your mother is waiting for you yeah, I heard you screwed up. How did you know? But yeah, I do believe that humans are a sum of their experiences. The sum of their experiences. And those experiences are typically, formed by the community around them. I also do believe that a product ideally should be a sum of the experiences of the people who make it. If we as designers become more inclusive and create products that and include other partners in the design process, I'm pretty sure that we're going to see some kind of significant outcome in terms of the impact. There is a lot of conversations where people ask the questions, like, how do you get seats at the table, right? And what the metaphor for sit at the table is how the designers get into top-level decision-making processes. And I would wager to say that the way to do that is actually to include more stakeholders in the design process. If you spend more time including stakeholders, or if you spend more time involving stakeholders in the process, going through an iterative process to get the kind of outcomes that are reasonable, I am pretty sure that the value of design is going to be very clear to the people within the organization. And over time, it's going to translate to leadership. Thank you.